Jesus' parables applied. Jesus told this parable for those who are losing faith. I'm going to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. Most people who hear Jesus' teachings don't understand absolutely anything. Not because they're stupid, not because they don't pay attention, but because they're listening with the wrong heart. And before you think I'm different, let me ask you a question. How many times have you heard a parable, thought it was beautiful, even got emotional, but 3 days later had completely forgotten it? Exactly. Jesus knew this. He knew most people would hear and not understand. That's why he spoke in parables, simple stories that hide truths so profound they can change your entire life if you know where to look. God saw your pain. He saw you trying, praying, seeking answers. And maybe the problem was never a lack of answers, but a lack of preparation to receive them. Here's the truth. Nobody tells you, no matter how many powerful words you hear, if your heart isn't prepared, nothing will germinate. It's like throwing gold seeds on asphalt and expecting a tree to grow. It won't happen. And the worst part is that many people spend their entire lives in this cycle. Hear, get emotional, forget, repeat. But today, this can change. Today you'll understand a parable Jesus told over 2,000 years ago. But that seems to have been written exactly for you, right now, in this moment of your life. Because when God truly speaks to the heart, time doesn't matter. The message crosses centuries and hits you right in the center. And what you'll discover here might be exactly what was missing for everything to start making sense. Get ready, because this isn't just another beautiful story. It's a mirror of your soul. The difficulty of understanding Jesus' teachings and the importance of having an attentive heart to see the deep truths in simple parables. You know, there's a curious thing that happens to most people when they hear the stories Jesus told. They listen, think it's beautiful, sometimes even get emotional, but then continue with their lives as if nothing had changed. It's like watching an inspiring movie and the next day completely forgetting the message. Jesus knew this. He noticed there was a huge difference between hearing and truly understanding. That's why he didn't speak in a complicated way, using difficult terms or elaborate philosophies. On the contrary, he told simple stories about plantations, fishermen, shepherds, and lost coins, everyday things. But there was something in these stories that touched deeply those who were truly willing to see. When God speaks to the heart, it's not always with grandiose words, but with truths so simple that many end up passing right by them. The question was never the complexity of the message, but the willingness of the listener. Think about how many times you've read or heard something that seemed ordinary, but later, in a difficult moment, it came back to your mind with a completely new meaning. It's as if the same phrase came to life. This happens because, often, our heart wasn't ready to receive that truth before. Jesus taught knowing that not everyone would understand immediately. Some would need time, others pain, and some would never allow the seed to enter. But he kept sowing because he knew that for those with an attentive heart, each word would be like water on dry land. God saw your pain in many moments of life, and it's precisely in these moments that the simplest teachings begin to make sense. That story that seemed like just a children's illustration suddenly becomes the answer you've been searching for. It's not magic, it's spiritual consciousness awakening. Now, look, having an attentive heart doesn't mean being perfect or already having all the answers. It means being willing to stop, silence the external and internal noise, and truly listen. We live in a world where everything screams for our attention. Notifications, commitments, worries, bills to pay, relationships to manage. In the midst of all this, it becomes almost impossible to hear the gentle and delicate voice trying to guide us. Jesus used parables precisely to pierce through this barrier of noise. A simple story has the power to cross the agitated mind and reach directly to the heart. But it only arrives if you allow it. You are not alone. God is with you in this learning process. He doesn't expect you to understand everything at once. What he expects is that you make yourself available to grow, to question, to seek the deeper meaning. It's like learning to see colors after living in black and white your whole life. And here's the point few people notice. The deepest truths usually come wrapped in the simplest stories. Jesus could have written theological treatises, but he chose to talk about seeds and soil. Why? Because he wanted even a child to understand, but also for the wisest to find layers upon layers of meaning. It's like those books you read at 10 years old and then reread at 30, discovering an entire universe you hadn't noticed before. Faith in Jesus Christ deepens exactly like this. We start understanding the basics, but as we walk, we discover increasingly transformative truths. The problem is that many stop at the surface. They hear the story, find it interesting, and that's it. They don't dig, don't question, don't allow it to shake their internal structures. And then, when life gets tough, they feel God is distant, when in reality, the distance has always been in the lack of attention, not in his absence. Get ready, because what comes next will show you exactly how this happens in practice. The parable of the sewer presentation of the story of seeds that fall on different soils roadside. Rocks, thorns, and good soil. Jesus was surrounded by people. People of all types, curious, skeptics, religious folks, fishermen, merchants, simple people and educated people. And in the midst of that crowd, he began to tell a story that everyone there knew well. He spoke of a man who went out to sow. There was nothing extraordinary about it. It was something that happened every day in that region. The sower took the seeds and cast them over the land, hoping they would bear fruit. But Jesus, being the master he was, began to describe something everyone had already seen happen. Not all seeds germinated the same way. Some fell by the roadside and were trampled or eaten by birds before they could even take root. Others fell among rocks, where they sprouted quickly but soon withered because they had no depth. There were also those that fell among thorns and, even growing, ended up suffocated. And finally, some fell on good soil and produced abundant fruit. It was an everyday scene, but it carried a weight that few perceived at that moment. The interesting thing is that Jesus wasn't giving an agriculture lesson. He was showing something about the life of each person there and about your life too. The same seed, the same sower, but completely different results. Doesn't this make you think, why is it that the same word can transform one person and not touch another? Why do some people hear something powerful and change their lives, while others hear the same thing and continue exactly the same way? The answer isn't in the seed, but in the soil. God sustained me in so many difficult moments, but there were times when I couldn't see this because my heart was hardened like stone. It wasn't that he wasn't acting, it was that I wasn't receptive. Jesus knew that many there were hearing but weren't truly receiving, and this wasn't the messager's fault, it was a matter of inner preparation. He wasn't condemning anyone, he was opening eyes to a spiritual reality that makes all the difference. So let's better understand this story. Imagine yourself going out to plant something. You have the best seeds, carefully selected, but if you throw these seeds anywhere without worrying about the type of soil, the result will be disastrous. If it falls on asphalt, it won't even germinate. If it falls on shallow, rocky soil, it will sprout, but at the first difficulty, it dies. If it falls in the middle of weeds, it will compete with other plants and end up losing strength. Now, if you prepare the soil, remove the rocks, pull out the thorns, fertilize and care for it, then the same seed will produce incredible fruits. Jesus was saying, look, I'm casting the seed of truth in all of you. But what happens next depends on the state of each person's heart. When everything seemed lost in many people's lives, they realized that the problem wasn't God's absence, but the type of soil they had offered for him to work with. It's a hard truth, but liberating. And here's the detail that changes everything. Jesus wasn't saying some are better than others. He was showing that all of us, at different moments in life, can be any of these soils. There are days when your heart is open, receptive, willing to grow. On those days, any word from God seems to touch deeply. But there are other days when you're so distracted, so tired, so overwhelmed that even the most powerful truths pass you by. You hear, but don't absorb. And the most fascinating thing is that Jesus doesn't give up sowing. He continues casting the seed because he knows the soil can change. God heard your prayer even when you thought he was distant. He has always been casting seeds of hope, direction, transformation. The question is, what type of soil have they been falling on? This question might make you uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And it's exactly about this that we need to reflect now with more depth. The meaning of each type of soil interpretation about the different hearts and how each receives the Word of God. Distracted heart, heart that gives up. Heart suffocated by worries. Now, let's get to what really matters. What each of these soils represents in your life. Jesus didn't leave anyone in doubt. He himself explained the meaning of the parable because he knew this was a truth that needed to be clear. The seed by the roadside represents those people who hear the word but don't understand it. You know that person who goes to church, hears an incredible sermon, but on the way home is already thinking about 1,000 other things. Or the one who reads a powerful verse, but 5 minutes later has completely forgotten. It's not ill will, it's distraction. It's a heart so busy with the world's urgencies that there is no space for truth to take root. The tears that God sees often arise precisely from this feeling of emptiness, of hearing so many good things but not being able to retain anything. It's like trying to fill a leaky bucket. The word enters but quickly drains away because there's no depth, no real attention, and worse. When life gets tough, these people have nothing to hold on to because they never allowed anything to be truly planted. Then there's the rocky soil. This one is interesting because it represents people who receive the word with immediate joy. They get excited, emotional, full of faith at first. But then comes the first difficulty, the first challenge, the first trial, and everything crumbles. You know that friend who starts going to church full of enthusiasm, shares verses every day, says their life has changed, but 3 months later has already abandoned everything. It's not hypocrisy, it's lack of depth. The faith was there, but it was superficial. It didn't have strong enough roots to withstand the storms. Jesus was pointing to something we see all the time. Emotion is not the same as transformation. You can get emotional with a song, with a message, with a testimony, but if it doesn't descend to the heart and create deep roots, at the first crisis, you'll give up. Heaven is silent, but God is acting, even when it seems nothing is happening. But to perceive this, you need roots that go beyond the emotional. Now comes the most treacherous soil of all, the one with thorns. This represents people who do receive the word, even let it grow a little. But then come life's worries, anxiety, love of money, fear of the future, and all of this suffocates what God was trying to do. This is the most common one. You know why? Because most of us live exactly like this. We want to serve God, but we also want to secure our financial future. We want to have faith, but we're anxious about everything. We want to trust, but we spend sleepless nights thinking about problems. Jesus wasn't saying it's wrong to work or plan. He was saying that when these things occupy all the space in your heart, there's no room left for anything else. It's like having a beautiful garden, but letting the weeds grow alongside until they take over everything. You are not alone. God is with you, trying to show you this. But as long as you allow anxiety, materialism, and worries to dominate, the word will be suffocated. It's not that it wasn't there, it's that there was no space to grow. And here's the point many people don't want to hear, but need to. Jesus was saying that often the problem isn't external, it's internal. It's not the devil. It's not the world, it's not lack of blessing, it's the state of your own heart. How many times have you prayed asking for an answer, but your heart was so full of noise that you couldn't hear? How many times did God try to direct you, but you were so distracted you missed the signal? This isn't reason to feel guilty, but rather to awaken it. When God speaks to the heart, he speaks in a way that only those who are attentive can perceive. It's not thunder, it's not a spectacular miracle. Sometimes it's just a feeling, an inexplicable peace, a gentle direction. But if you're stepping on the roadside or jumping from emotion to emotion, or suffocated by worries, you'll miss these signals. Jesus didn't tell this parable to discourage anyone. He told it to open the eyes of those who truly want to grow. And the good news is that none of these soils needs to remain as it is. The good soil and reflection on the state of our heart, how we become receptive to transformation and the importance of preparing the inner soil, so we finally arrive at the good soil. This is the soil everyone wants to be, but few truly understand what it means. Jesus said the good soil represents those who hear the word, understand it, and produce fruit. Sounds simple, right? But there's much more behind it. Good soil isn't the one that never had rocks or thorns. On the contrary, it's often precisely the soil that was worked, plowed, cleaned, and prepared. Nobody is born being good soil automatically. We become good soil when we decide to stop, look inward, and do the necessary work. This means removing the rocks of hardness, pulling out the thorns of worries, and creating depth where before there was only surface. God acts in silence, but he also acts through our conscious choices of preparation. Have you ever stopped to think how many times you lost growth opportunities because your heart was unprepared? How many powerful words passed through you without taking root because the soil was occupied with other things? Good soil isn't perfect, but it's intentional. Now, look, being good soil doesn't mean never having problems or never going through difficulties. It means having a heart that, even in the midst of the storm, remains firm and receptive. Think of a real farmer. He doesn't just choose the seeds, he prepares the soil. He removes the rocks, pulls out the weeds, turns the earth, adds fertilizer. It's laborious, tiring, brings sweat, but he knows that without this preparation, nothing will grow properly. The same happens with you. If you want God's word to produce real fruits in your life, you need to be willing to do this inner work. This might mean giving up some things that distract you. It might mean facing fears you've been avoiding for years. It might mean letting go of worries you carry as if they were part of you. When everything seemed lost, it was precisely in this moment of surrender and preparation that many people found the turnaround. Because God doesn't expect perfection, he expects availability. And here's something that completely changes the perspective. Good soil produces fruits not just for itself, but for others too. Jesus said that good soil produces 100, 60, and 30-fold. This is multiplication. When you allow the word to create deep roots in you, it doesn't just stay stored there, it overflows. It transforms the way you speak, how you act, how you treat people. You become a source of hope for those around you. Have you noticed how some people, just by being near them, make you feel peace? It's not luck, it's the fruit of a well-cultivated heart. These people went through the preparation process. They removed the rocks, pulled out the thorns, created depth, and now everything that enters them multiplies. Faith in Jesus Christ isn't just believing He exists, it's allowing Him to work in the garden of your heart until you become fertile soil for the kingdom. But let's be honest, this work of becoming good soil scares many people. Why? Because it requires real change. You can't be good soil and continue the same way. You can't want abundant fruits and remain with a heart full of rocks and thorns. Jesus was challenging each person there and is challenging you now. How is your heart today? It's not a rhetorical question. It's an invitation to honest self-evaluation. Look inward and ask, have I been giving space for God to work in me, or have I been resisting? Have I been removing the obstacles, or just complaining that nothing grows? God heard your prayer, but He also expects you to do your part. He casts the seed, but you need to prepare the soil. And when you do this, when you truly open yourself to transformation, something extraordinary happens. What before seemed impossible begins to germinate. What before was dry begins to flourish. And you finally understand what it means to produce fruit in abundance. The renewal of the heart, the hope that no soil is permanent and that we can change. Remove rocks and thorns to be transformed. Here's the part many people don't realize, but that changes everything. No soil is permanent. You may have spent years being rock, years being thorns, years being roadside. And even so, there's still hope. Jesus didn't tell this parable to label people and leave them trapped in a category. He told it to awaken, to show that there's choice, that real transformation is possible. Hard soil can be plowed, rocks can be removed, thorns can be pulled out. It's not easy, it's not quick, but it's totally possible. God sustained me in moments when my heart was completely closed, and still He didn't give up. He kept working, patiently waiting for me to allow transformation. And you know what's most incredible? He does the same with you. It doesn't matter how long you've been hardened, distracted, or suffocated. Today can be the day you decide to make space for real change. Today can be the day you stop accepting the current state of your heart as something permanent. Think with me, how many times have you heard someone say, "I'm just like this, there's no way"? Or worse, how many times have you said this yourself? This is one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves. Of course there's a way. Of course you can change. The problem is that real change requires effort, requires brutal honesty with yourself, requires letting go of things you've become accustomed to carrying. But when you finally decide to do this work, when you take the spiritual tools and start digging deep into your own heart, something powerful happens. You begin to discover layers of hardness you didn't even know existed. You begin to identify thorns that had been there so long you thought they were part of who you were. The tears that God sees in this process are of liberation, not defeat. Is it painful? Yes. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Because on the other side of this renewal is a version of you that couldn't even imagine what's possible. And look how interesting. Jesus never said you need to do this alone. In fact, the transformation of the heart is a partnership. You make yourself available, and God acts play. You remove what you can, and He removes what you couldn't alone. You are not alone. God is with you in every step of this process. When you look at your life and think there's so much to change, I don't even know where to start. Remember, start where it hurts most. Start with the rock that bothers you most, with the thorn that hurts you most, and ask for help. Pray sincerely. God, I want to change, but I don't know how. Show me the way. When God speaks to the heart this way, when the person is truly willing to hear and act, transformation is inevitable. It may take time, it may be gradual, but it's real. And each small victory, each rock removed, each thorn pulled out, brings you closer to becoming that good soil that produces abundant fruit. The truth is that heart renewal is a continuous process, not a one-time event. You don't wake up one day and think, done, now I'm good soil forever. It doesn't work like that. It's daily work of maintenance, vigilance, care. Because new rocks can appear, new thorns can try to grow. Life keeps happening, challenges keep coming, temptations keep existing. But when you develop the habit of caring for your heart, when you learn to identify signs of hardening before they become permanent, everything changes. You begin to live more consciously, more intentionally, more aligned with the purpose God has for you. Heaven is silent, but God is acting, preparing you for things you can't even imagine yet. Each moment of renewal, each choice to remove an obstacle, each decision to allow Him to work in you is bringing you closer to a life of real, lasting, and transformative fruits. And this journey, my friend, is just beginning. Conclusion. So, after everything you've seen here, let me ask you a very direct question. What type of soil have you been? Don't answer automatically. Don't give that beautiful answer you think you should give. Answer with brutal honesty. Look inward and recognize, are there rocks? Are there thorns? Are there distractions occupying all the space? Because if you got here and didn't change anything, this message will be just another seed thrown by the roadside. Another beautiful thing you heard that won't generate absolutely any fruit. And look, I'm not here to judge you, but to provoke you. You are not alone. God is with you, waiting for you to do your part. He already cast the seed. He already gave you the word. He already showed you the way. Now it's up to you. Will you continue the same way, or will you pick up the hoe and start working on your heart? Here's what I want you to do now. Choose one thing. Just one. One rock you're going to remove. One thorn you're going to pull out. One distraction you're going to eliminate. Don't try to change everything at once, because you'll give up. But choose one thing and act today. It could be that worry that consumes you. It could be that vice that suffocates you. It could be that hardness that won't let you receive anything from God. Choose one thing and decide. Starting today. This no longer occupies space in my heart, and then observe what happens. Because when you create space, God fills it. When you remove the obstacle, the seed can finally grow. Faith in Jesus Christ isn't just believing, it's acting. It's allowing real transformation. It's stopping living in theory and starting to live in practice. And let me tell you one more thing. If this message touched you, if something here made you uncomfortable, if you felt that tightness in your chest that shows God is speaking to you, don't let this moment pass. Don't be another person who gets emotional and forgets. Like this video now, share it with someone you know needs to hear this, and subscribe to the channel activating notifications. Why? Because this transformation journey doesn't end here. There's much more truth to be discovered, many more parables to be applied, much more growth ahead. God heard your prayer, and He's preparing you for something greater. But you need to keep walking, keep learning, keep deepening. So stay with me on this journey. Let's together become good soil, remove the rocks, pull out the thorns, and finally produce the fruits God has always wanted to see in our lives. Heaven is silent, but God is acting, and He's acting in you right now. Don't let this seed fall in the wrong place. Prepare your heart and let it grow. See you in the next video.